Can I hit you with a couple questions here? Just
Yeah,
fire
I
some
also have a
questions at me.
few takes. So
Go.
yeah,
You want to do takes or do you want me to throw you some questions?
let's rotate. I'll start with a take.
Okay, go.
So JMU really did struggle to shoot in that App State game, and they struggled to shoot this entire Sun Belt run. And it was really worrying to me because I was having flashbacks to last year where it seemed like every time they lost, they were shooting sub 20%. And every time they lose this year, you see the tweet, JMU shot a season low 20% from behind the arc. And it's just like, oh my goodness, what's happening? This was a 42% shooting team in non-conference. Well, Bennett, I dug up some numbers, and you tell me if this is a little worrisome. Dating back to the start of last season when JMU's first year in the Sun Belt, the Dukes are shooting 49.35% in non-conference play from the floor as a whole. In Sun Belt play, that falls down to 43% from the field. That is a 6.29% difference. And then from deep, they're shooting just a shade under 40%. And in Sun Belt play, which is 15 games over the last 2 seasons, they're shooting 28% from behind the arc. What? Can you tell me why that is such a I'd expect a little bit of a fall off because they are playing, like you said, a bad non-conference schedule, but should I expect an 11.15% drop off between non-conference and conference play?
I think last year's team had some like volume shootery guys who just straight up weren't that efficient. I think this year's team has only played 5 games. So I'd give them a little more sample. I think they'll get it back. I think they're a better shooting team than last year would be my
But
lean.
is 5 games not a big enough sample? They're shooting 24% this season. Their best shooting performance was against Texas State, where they went 9 of 24. Is 5 games not a large enough sample to tell me that they're not good from behind the arc in Sun Belt play?
I think they'll turn that around and have some better shooting performances than they've had.
They had 7 games in non-conference play shooting better than 37.5%.
That's what makes me think they'll turn it around. I think they've got good shooters. Michael Green is on an epic cold streak. Friedel has kind of been hot or cold. I say this every year, and I'll continue to say it. Would not mind Julian Wooden shooting more shots.
Yeah, Julian Wooden is when he would take his shots against App State, it really helped the offense. Okay, what's your question?
Here's my question. Saw this from a number of JMU fans who I think part of this is just frustration after the loss. Terrence Edwards is either going to win Conference Player of the Year or he'll be in the top like few candidates. He's probably like a first-team All-Sun Belt guy. Was he trying to do too much in some of the recent games?
Yes.
Do you think that?
I forgot I wanted to call out these people. We were leaving the bank, and some guys behind us asked us what was going to be on the podcast this week. I think this is the anti-take of what they were wanting us to talk about, because they asked if it was a Terrence Edwards legacy game if they had won. No, Terrence Edwards was 9 of 21 and was not put in the best positions to succeed, I think, by the coaching staff. Byington said it in the press conference that he doesn't think they really harped on a few key coaching perspectives throughout that 24, 36 hours between the South Alabama game and the App State game. And I think that kind of showed with Edwards' game. I'm not putting the blame on him. He is that type of player. He's going to take 20 shots from the floor. But at times there were a few questionable things that I think the coaching staff needed to really harp on and make sure that he wouldn't do. For example, getting the big man Abson, I think his name is, number 21, who's 6'9" with a 7'5" wingspan. He got him ISO'd in the corner and called it like not just any old ISO, the type of ISO where you're waving off the players to push him to the other side of the court, and you take a contested 23-footer. Like that's something the coaching staff has to get him not to do.
That was a tough one. Definitely a questionable shot there. Do you think that it's a long-term concern? Because he does create his own shot, take some contested ones near the rim especially, and make them a lot, which is part of what makes him a good player. Are you concerned long-term about, because he's not the only guy who played a little bit of hero ball the last few games where they kind of try to ISO guys.
Am I concerned about the hero ball mentality with the team overall?
Do you think like they'll change that, or do you think we're going to be here in March talking about a Sun Belt tournament loss because guys are like clearing the floor and trying to take step backs?
I think they'll figure it out. I think they'll understand it. TJ Bickerstaff didn't practice, I think, 2 days this week going into the South Alabama game.
Yeah.
And then against South Alabama, rolled his ankle and had to leave the game and was out of the game for a little bit and then ended up coming back and everything was fine. But in the post game, it was revealed that he was battling an illness all week. And then he was also kind of battling with that ankle injury. So I think that might be why you have saw him take a slight step back and Terrence took a slight step forward. I think if Bickerstaff can get back into the fold, is healthy, and that continues to grow, I think JMU will be just fine. But I think Bickerstaff's not rising to the occasion against App State is the reason they lost. And I'm not saying that's because of his fault. I think because there was an injury in play and a sickness in play.
Yeah, that makes sense. Got another take?
I do, and it has to do with MG3, Michael Green III. You mentioned it earlier. I guess it's kind of a question back to you that's kind of a take, but do we have a point guard controversy? Like Michael Green over the last 3 games is, I believe, 0 of 19 over the last 4 games. Since December 19th, he hasn't hit 2 or more threes in a single game.
Is that from 3?
Yes, sorry. He has not hit more than 2 threes in a game. Prior to that, he did it at a quite often clip, and he's 0 of 19 over his last 4 games, and he's coming off of a season low 17 minutes. In contrast, Xavier Brown was the only Duke against App State to hit more than 2 3 or hit more than 1 3. He was the only one with multiple threes, and his play on the defensive end was electric, and he was the energy guy. This is what Mark Byington had to say after the game when asked if there's a point guard controversy in Harrisonburg.
You've kind of been experimenting a lot with different lineups this season, and you look at a guy like Xavier and the impact he's had off the bench tonight. Have you kind of thought at all about potentially maybe throwing him in the starting lineup a little bit more often as the season has gone on and he's just performed so well?
No, we don't talk about those things right now. The guys who play, and he's been playing well. He's an important part of the team, just like everybody else.
I will say I don't think there is a point guard controversy, but Xavier Brown is starting to kind of make some noise. I think Michael Green, once he gets back on track, will be elite, but he's in a historically bad cold streak right now.
Jackson Hefner with the Breeze had some great questions. He asked that one. Quality question. Byington deflected the heck out of it, which was interesting. Michael Green scored in double figures in 7 of JMU's first 10 games. The last 7 games, he has not scored in double figures once, with the most points he scored in that stretch being 7 points on 2 occasions. 2 of the games he's only had 2 points.
Yeah, not a great stretch from MG3 right here. I do think things will come around. The coaching staff clearly has shown at least some sort of faith in him because he still has the green light. He is still attempting multiple threes per game. And I think the reason he didn't play a lot down the stretch against App State was I think Xavier Brown was just playing too well defensively to take him out.
Yeah, he played well. He's also a little bit taller. There was a couple where, and I'm not going to know the name, but it was 11 on App State. One of their guards had a little more size, and he would kind of just drive Green down and make some like shots in the paint. I think they flipped a little for defense, which is we've kind of known all year, right? That Green is a better offensive player, I think, than a defensive player. Not that he's a bad defender, but his strength is he facilitates well and can knock down threes. So if he's not knocking down threes, they'll toy with stuff. But yeah, I think he'll get out of the slump. They got a bunch of guys right now who are just kind of in a cold stretch. And starting the year, they were shooting kind of everyone out of their minds. They had like 5 guys shooting over 40%, which is
this is what they did last year too, though. And last year they finished shooting from deep. Got my spreadsheet.
They're worse last year.
They shot 42% from deep in non-conference play last year. They shot 32% from deep in conference play last year.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Greens.
And now we're seeing the same pattern develop this year. And we've already heard in one excuse of the physicality is impacting them. Well, you knew what the physicality was coming into this year. You played in this conference last year.
I don't fully get that one.
And to top it all off, this team is 40th in the nation in 2-point percentage, according to KenPom, which is 5th best in the Sun Belt. And they rank 1st in the league in 2 points made. They rank 1st in the league in 2-point percentage, and they're 3rd in the league in 2 points attempted. Like, I don't get this team.
I think they'll be all right. I think they'll be fine. It's another one where, like,
I'm just worried, I guess.
You got some guys.
Donovan Gregory is 11.
Yeah, okay, yeah, he's a stud. They got a great
Thank you,
run.
Mr. Levy. They're App State's good.
I like App a lot. But like Julian Wooden, you look at his game against Division I teams, he's shooting 63% from 2, 34% from 3, and he's like an 89% free throw shooter on the year. And he took 4 shots in the game.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any, like, he's got to force himself a little more, I think, because he's a very gifted scorer. And you see some people struggling to score. And then there's one where he just like catches the ball, stares his guy down, does a jab, and then pulls up and nails a 3 late in the game. And it's like, please, man, like let Wooden fire up some shots.
It's funny what Phoenix was saying in the interview where he's like, I'm not the type of guy that's going to demand the ball. I'm going to play my role in the offense. Julian Wooden is like the exact same. I'm going to play my role when I get it. No, Julian, I need you to like sometimes go back to the huddle and be like, Coach, I'm red hot. Draw me up some plays. Like coming out of timeouts, it would have been nice to see Wooden get a look.
It would have been, and I think
it wouldn't been.
They got to get a little more consistent overall.
Come on, man. That was a great pun.
I know. I was sorry. I was deep over here on my screen. I'm looking at Noah Friedel 3-point shooting stats.
But yes, I think this team, and I think we're having like 2 different just flows of consciousness right now with how we're taking this all out, which is fine. I think this team needs to, it feels like at times they want to play outside in. I really think, am I wrong in thinking that? Your eyes gave me a look.
No, I'm processing. Outside in, meaning they prefer threes?
Like almost like they want to get their offense going from outside, from threes, even long range, mid range jumpers, and then go in. Where looking back now, we were questioning the App State game plan. I think that was the right game plan. I just don't think they executed it well.
See, here's my thing. I'm not even sure that was their game plan to attack the rim. It sounded like Byington was kind of frustrated with them attacking the rim and not shot faking.
That's right. He did say that. He wanted more shot fakes. And I guess, yeah.
I think App blocked 7 shots. Like, that's frustrating. They weren't drawing a ton of fouls in there. And then they were also cold from 3. It was kind of a perfect storm of bad things. But the defense, so this is kind of shocking, right? We talked previously about how in KenPom they were like,
they're good on defense now.
Yeah, they were like 30th offensively and like 115th defensively. It's now 74th offensively, 82nd defensively. They've made some strides there, which is interesting. But here's my last question for you. They led this game late, couldn't score in the last 4 minutes. If they grind out like a 2-point win, are we having like any of these conversations about like?
Yeah, that's the thing. We're not. We're talking about how great this team is and it's at large chances.
See, that's why I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to get the shooting back on track. I think they're playing better defense, which should be super encouraging.
I think my issue is, and I might speak, I don't want to speak for some fans, but I feel like some fans had this same sentiment. I let myself buy into the at-large conversation. I let myself think this team had at-large chances, legit at-large chances. And looking back, that wasn't correct. And I think that skewed my expectations for this season. I saw what FAU did a year ago, and I thought to myself, why couldn't that be JMU? Why can't the Dukes go on some historic run and do something they've never done before in the history of their program and do it for the first time this year? I think this is a Sun Belt winning caliber team. I think this team, they've got an uphill battle, a big time uphill battle to win the Sun Belt regular season with how they've started this year. But I think they have the caliber to win the regular season, and I think they especially have the caliber to win the Sun Belt tournament. And that was the expectation coming into the season. I was foolish enough to buy into this at large, which is why it makes this loss hurt so much more.
Yeah, I think the at large is essentially dead.
That large is gone. I mean, you'd have to win out, like literally win out.
Yeah. So that's tough. It's tough. The schedule's bad. The schedule, frankly, is just very bad, which means they're going to end with a lot of wins. I think they'll figure it out, but it's tough.
Daniel Merriman said, football has us thinking crazy in the Sun Belt. Yeah, maybe football skewed it a little. Maybe just continuing to win in football, and then basketball starts with an upset against Michigan State and like a historic comeback against Kent State. Really had me buying in. Yeah.
They should be, though. They should, resource-wise, commitment-wise to basketball, they should kind of run this league.
Yeah, and I think they're on pace for that. I think we also have to remind ourselves, Bennett, you and me, we are just a few years removed from the lowest of low. We were one of the worst, and I try not to use we too much to like make it seem like this is a fancy podcast, but I'm talking to you right now, Bennett. We were one of the worst teams in the entire nation like 4 years ago.
3-11 in Ken Palm in 2019, 2020 season, Lou Rose last year.
Yes. Like,
it's bad.
We are not far from being the laughing stock of college basketball. We lost to the Citadel at home.
They lost a lot of home games.
yeah, they did. The Citadel one really sticks out to me because it was so embarrassing. Coppin State at home. I mean, this team is not long removed from just being abysmal.
Also, another good news: home games the rest of the season. You're going to have the students back.
They should win out at home. All right,
if you say so.